Hey guys, so today on my channel I will be talking about a true crime murder of Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias. So if you guys don't know that story, Jodi Arias pretty much murdered a boyfriend. It's pretty crazy, it gets really intense. So if you guys want to hear about that while I am filming this makeup look, please keep watching.
This case is about Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. We will begin with Jodi. She was born in Salinas, California on July 9th, 1980. Her parents were William Angelo and Sandy Arias. She had 4 siblings, and in earlier interviews, Jodi said that she had a pretty normal childhood with a close, big family. However, in later interviews, Jodi changed her words to claiming that at the age of 7, she was abused and beaten with belts and wooden spoons, mostly by her father. She attended Wairika Union High School, but dropped out in 11th grade. Jodi considered herself a photographer. She wanted to pursue a career in it, so she went on to earn her GED soon after dropping out of high school. And Jodi went on to take several part-time photography jobs. But her main source of income was working at a restaurant in Carmel as a server and bartender. She did start to date the manager, Daryl Brewer, in 2003. Financially, she was struggling, so Jodi wanted to look for another source of income, and she found a job at Prepaid Legal Services. From my understanding, they sold legal services and insurance to those who were not able to afford lawyers. And in 2006, in September, Jodi attended a company conference in Las Vegas. She was invited as a blind date, from my understanding. There was a lot of different discrepancies with this. Some resources say that she was invited with other groups, and others say that she was invited just to be Travis's blind date. So in 2006, in September, Jodi was invited as a blind date for Travis Alexander. Now, Travis Alexander was born on July 28th in 1977 in California. He was one of 7 children. I believe 7 children. It might have been 8. Both his parents were drug addicts. His mother would be very abusive towards him and all of his siblings, and his parents would go on meth benders and leave their kids at home to fend for themselves, eating moldy food for several days. So, thankfully, at a young age, his parents divorced, and his grandmother, Norma, took custody of all the children. He was a single, successful, and spiritual man. After moving to live with his grandmother, she introduced him to the Mormon faith, and Travis was just very successful at everything that he did. He was a motivational speaker, and he had also worked for Prepaid Legal Services Incorporated, or Prepaid Legal Incorporated. I think it's whatever, one or the other. Being a single eligible bachelor and dateless to this convention, his team had suggested a new recruit as his date. And you guessed it, Jodi Arias would be that date. They found each other irresistible. Now, I'm not sure if you forgot already, but Jodi already had a serious boyfriend, Daryl, back at home. But she fell head over heels for Travis the moment she met him. Jodi would return back home and break up with her boyfriend, Daryl, telling him that she wanted to save herself for her future husband. Daryl had no intention of marrying again, as he was previously divorced. So Jodi thought this was her best interest, to leave him and pursue a relationship with Travis, who wanted to find a beautiful wife in the Mormon faith. However, Jodi was not very religious or didn't know much about her religion that she was previously in or the Mormon religion. So Travis presented her with the Book of Mormon. He had asked her to read it, and throughout there, Travis would ask her just simple questions that were referring to the book without letting her know, to see if she could answer them correctly, to see if she was even trying to be interested in that religion. And she would pass with flying colors. So 2 months after meeting Jodi, she converted her religion to the Mormon faith. With the complete and total support of Travis by her side, she would be baptized. After Jodi converted her religion, her and Travis began a very serious, long-distance relationship, around 400 miles apart. Jodi lived in Palm Desert, California, and Travis lived in Mesa, Arizona. But they really wouldn't let that interfere with that relationship, don't you worry. The attraction between them was so strong, according to Jodi in interviews. Travis Alexander had come across a book that was called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. He asked Jodi to be his companion while he checked these locations off his bucket list. Soon after takeoff, their relationship began to evolve and was based purely on lust and attraction. Being a Mormon, they had a strong core belief that you should not engage in sexual behaviors before marriage. This is known as the law of chastity. I am not Mormon myself, so I can only speak for the extent of my research of the law. Chastity is a sexual purity, and you are to be morally clean in their thoughts, words, and actions. They believe that intimacy between a husband and a wife is beautiful and sacred, and it is ordained of God for the creation of children and for the expression of love within a marriage. Breaking this law of chastity and encouraging someone else to do so is not an expression of love to them. And they believe that people who loved each other would never endanger another's happiness and safety in exchange for that pleasure. So clearly, this relationship was not following that law of chastity. Travis and his family and friends thought that this was a core value of Travis's. He wanted to find a woman whose beliefs were the same as his, and her core values must be the same as his as well. When they met Jodi for the first time, she introduced herself as his girlfriend. His friends were in complete shock and very confused. They all claimed that, quote unquote, he had interest in other girls, and he definitely played the field. One night, Travis left his phone unattended around Jodi, and she began to snoop around in suspicion of him cheating on her. She would forward any email from his phone regarding any female that was involved in an email, no matter the content, from his email to her email, so she could read them. Chris and Sky had noticed Jodi acting this way and being very clingy and just snooping around and so on and so forth. So they had pulled Travis aside and said, you gotta break it off. She's crazy. She's obsessed with you. She's gonna kill you. And Travis blew this off. He was like, there's no way. No way she would do that. She loves me. She became Mormon for me. She appreciates me. And they noticed that Jodi was standing at the door. So that was it. That was his last straw. He broke the relationship off right there. Now, normally after you break up, you would most likely move away, both mentally and even physically. Jodi, that was not an option. After their breakup in February 2007, she moved to Mesa, Arizona, very close to Travis. Now, to the public, they both moved on. They weren't seeing each other. They weren't dating. Travis told friends and family that their relationship was completely over, and he was so thankful that he could move on and make things right with the church again. However, behind closed doors and in total secret, their sexual relationship continued. In an interview with Jodi, she said this, and I will quote, "Nobody really knows what was going on behind closed bedroom doors, except him and I." Again, this relationship was based solely on just sex. Realizing the relationship was not growing past that, Jodi tried to move on, and she moved back home to Wairika in 2008 with her grandparents. Travis seemed overly excited when he was talking to his friends that she had moved back, but their relationship still continued. In what seemed to be like trying to move on from Travis, Jodi soon began talking to a man named Ryan Burns. Now, Ryan was also a very successful individual in the Mormon Church. He was also a fellow coworker at Prepaid Services. Their relationship was just phone calls and emails, from what I understand. Now, according to Ryan, he knew who Travis was, but he never knew him on a personal friend level. Now, Ryan said that he and Jodi had met at a convention, how convenient, for Prepaid Legal in Oklahoma back in April of 2008. A few weeks after meeting each other, Jodi and Ryan began talking on the phone almost 5 times a week. He said that at the end of May of that year, he and Jodi made plans for her to visit Utah, where he lived. If you've been following along, you know that the sexual relationship between Jodi and Travis never fully came to an end. They would talk on the phone or emails all the time, so it would come to no surprise to any of us watching this that when Jodi left for this said trip to Utah to see her new fling Ryan, she would conveniently detour her trip to stop by and see her man, Travis. Now, from my understanding, Travis invited her to stop by on her way through to Utah after Jodi claimed that she had gotten lost. So he said, "Just come see me." Fast forwarding to her trip, Jodi arrived at Travis Alexander's house, and to her story, they had sex, they went to sleep, they woke up, and they again had sex twice. Afterwards, they went up to a shower, and they decided to have a photo shoot. Jodi said in an interview, "We were going to get him in the shower with these waist-up shots. The shower was on it, and it looked really cool because the way the water was frozen in the image." When Jodi was being interviewed after the murder, she finally came out with what we now know to be a lie and claimed that her and Travis were held by gunpoint. After Travis was attacked and on his hands and knees, Jodi managed to get away, get in her car, and magically escape. Now, what detectives didn't understand is if this were all true, why the hell didn't she call 911? Or even someone who she knew for help. Instead, Jodi took off for Utah. That's right, she went to Utah to see Ryan. Now, Jodi would later, after leaving the crime scene, make 3 phone calls. None to which were 911, by the way. 2 of those phone calls were to Travis Alexander's cell phone. 1 was to Ryan. A voicemail she left at 11:37 p.m. to Travis's cell phone that night on June 4th in 2008, she acted completely normal. She was inviting Travis to plans with her friends, talking about when the next time she wanted to visit was, and so on. Completely normal on her end. Jodi arrived in Utah at Ryan's home on June 5th. According to Ryan Burns' testimony during the trial, Jodi was hours late upon her arrival. She claimed that she had gotten lost, she stopped to rest, and Jodi showed up with cuts all over her hand. And when Ryan had asked her what happened to her, she said it was just from bartending from work. Another shocking fact that Ryan said in his testimony was that her hair was completely different. It was a completely different color than the last time that he saw her. Her hair then was platinum blonde, as you have seen in photos, and now was brown. After going with Ryan to business meetings, Jodi and him would retreat back to his place, become passionate with each other. However, Ryan insisted that he halted these actions because he did not want it to go any further than it has. For the rest of the trip, Jodi and Ryan would attend business meetings for prepaid services and dinners. To Ryan, nothing seemed off with Jodi. She seemed completely fine and normal, calm the whole trip. About 1 a.m., Jodi returned back to California, and that was it. That was the end of her trip. It wouldn't be till 5 days later when Travis would be found by his friends and his roommates in his shower, murdered in cold blood. Now, Mimi, who was actually Travis's friend and what I say current love interest at this time, and some friends have noticed that they haven't seen or heard from him in a few days. He was supposed to leave for Cancun and never showed up. This was very important because Mimi was also supposed to attend this business trip with him. They were supposed to leave the day before they found him. So they went over to Travis's house. They're banging on the door. Nobody's answering. One of them knew the code to the garage, so they use that to get in. And they go and they're knocking on his roommate's door. He answers, and he's in there with his girlfriend listening to some music. They ask, like, where's Travis? Like, have you seen him? And he says that, oh, he already left for the trip. Well, Mimi knew that that wasn't true. She insisted on him getting a key to his room. So he was like, okay, he does that. And it was then he found Travis in the shower, dead. He was shot in the head, and he was cut ear to ear across his throat. Mimi, without even walking into the room, knowing at this point, based solely on the roommate's reaction, calls 911. Detectives and police come and they ask his roommate some questions, especially how they didn't even realize that Travis was dead inside their home for days. But it turns out they were innocent after all. Now, police asked all of Travis's friends and family who could possibly want to do this to him. Every single one of them pointed at Jodi Arias. Now, it is said that police didn't even have to go find her, that she actually called to give her assistance to the case. Let's talk about some of the evidence that points to Jodi being the murderer. It's said that on May 28th of that year, there was a burglary at Jodi's grandparents' house. The only thing that was missing was a gun, which was a .25 caliber automatic Colt pistol, to be exact. Coincidentally enough, a shell casing was found right next to Travis's body at the crime scene. That's right, a .25 caliber shell casing. Jodi had rented a vehicle for the trip to Travis's and Ryan's house. When she returned the vehicle, all the floor mats were missing. When asked what happened to these floor mats, she claimed that she spilled Kool-Aid on them. The renter of the vehicle testified in court and said that there were red stains on both the front and back seats of the car, and also that the car had been driven about 2,800 miles. Looking through the murder scene, police examined several spots of blood, and specifically a bloody handprint on the wall that had 2 different types of blood, both a female and a male's. While gathering blood evidence, detectives noticed some blood on top of the washer and the dryer, which made them open it, and they found, I believe, bloody t-shirts and a camera inside. They were able to recover a lot of the deleted images that were on this camera. Now, I mentioned earlier that Jodi had said in an interview that her and Travis wanted to have a photo shoot that day in the shower. These were the photos that were recovered. In an interview with police before her arrest, Jodi was shown these pictures. One in particular, it was a nude picture of herself in Travis's bed. Jodi didn't refuse the fact that the image was of her, but instead said, well, it kind of looks like me. You can clearly see that it was her in this photo. You can see her face and her body. The importance of this photo was the fact that each picture that was recovered all had timestamps on them. And now she admits, but this time it was all in self-defense. Jodi Arias at this time would claim that her relationship with Travis became very emotional and physically abusive. It's said that the night, according to Jodi, she dropped his brand new camera and he became enraged with anger, forcing her to defend for her life. She said that Travis had lunged at her and she ran towards his closet and remembered that he had a gun in there and grabbed it, turned around and aimed it right at him. She was so scared for her life that she pulled the trigger, hitting Travis. She said that she does not remember the stabbing or dragging him back to the shower and leaving him for dead. While on stand, revealed text messages, recorded phone calls and conversations, and even showed her finger in which Travis had broken while he was angry with her. It was there she broke, and she admitted to the stabbing and shooting of Travis Alexander. Now that they knew that she did it, that was inevitable. It was now time to prove if the murder was premeditated. This would determine if Jodi would be charged life in prison or the death penalty. Before Jodi had left for her trip, she would fill up 2 5-gallon gas cans, so she didn't have to stop anywhere. So on May 7th, 2013, Jodi Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder of Travis Alexander. But she was only sent to life in prison without parole.